Seventh round. Immediately thereafter, he walked into the teeth of a monumental decision. He was drafted, and then he refused induction on the grounds of his religious convictions on war.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor, hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. What, I'm going to shoot them for what? How can I go shoot them? Them little poor little black people, little babies and children and women. How can I shoot them poor people? Just take me to jail.
While fighting imprisonment for his stand, Ali was also stripped of his title, denied a license to fight in the United States, and denied a visa to go overseas to fight. He was in a much tighter financial bind than most were aware of.
I don't want to see the world heavyweight champion driving the Volkswagen, guys in the Cadillacs and making fun of you. So I'm working today, I'm hauling, right? And so one day I had to speak at Canisius. Heard of Canisius? Canisius, Fairleigh Dickinson, C.W. Post. 3 colleges at $1,500 a college. Pretty good money. So I broke my wife's piggy bank. She had about $35 in it. $135. I broke the piggy bank to get gas money to get me to the college. And I got enough gas and food money to get the $4,500, the $1,500 lecture. At $45 would hold me, pay gas bills, light bills, till I get to the next college. This went on until the whole mess was over.
Inevitably, students would challenge Ali on his stand and his convictions. Remarkably, Ali more than held his own against students who had a far better formal education than he.
I'm saying you talking about me about some draft, and all of you white boys are breaking your neck to get to Switzerland and Canada and London. I'm not going to help nobody get something my Negroes don't have. If I'm going to die, I'll die now, right here fighting you. If I'm going to die, you my enemy. My enemy is the white people, not Viet Congs or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
That was the great Muhammad Ali. So I'm going to get right into it today because I get too much flack for going too long on these. I'm not going to have a long introduction. So let me introduce my co-host, my homie, my dog, Pascal Robert.
Jason Miles, what's going on, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I saw you. So Pascal and I did about 3.5 hours this morning on the left flank vets with Marcus. We're supposed to go on there for like 45 minutes to an hour. And Marcus's black ass had us on there for 3.5 hours talking shit and yelling. And it's partially this man's fault why we was yelling. Our guest today is a man I've been wanting to speak to for a while because he is from a city that I lived in and toured through and have some good and horrible memories from, North Dakota. Matt Lech.
Hey guys, how's it going?
What's going on, man?
What's going on, Matt? How are you?
I'm well. How are you guys? Are you talking about Wilson? Or are you talking about Mandan?
Oh, Mandan, I have no bad memories touring. Working there was, it was different. And it's not so much the people of North Dakota, because if you know anything about Williston, it was an influx of new booty that came into Williston. And because they were in such desperate need of people, there was no real background checking. So there was some horrible atrocities that definitely went on there. A woman actually got murdered just jogging. And if you know anything about Williston, it's a very small town, literally in the middle of nowhere. And they got hit with things that they really weren't used to. So yeah.
Yeah, that was after the Turin days. Yeah, the Bakken oil.
Bakken,
yeah. Horrible stuff. That notorious. All the other parts of North Dakota, it's like, on the one hand, they're bringing a lot of oil revenue in, so that was probably the main top line for most North Dakotans, particularly during the financial crisis. But yeah, it was, anybody can get a job there, no background checks, that there's a lot of grisly stuff happen.
I interviewed a woman that was a stripper in North Dakota. She happened to be a Marxist stripper, and we had a very interesting interview because she wrote a great article about the economics of a boom town.
That is fascinating because that was probably the third topic, which is how much the strippers were making in Williston. Because there was only two, I think.
There was two strip clubs, yeah, and it all wasn't true. I'll send you that link. Yeah, it all wasn't true.
Wow.
And our last guest for today, I was recently on his show. It's a show that I want a lot of people to listen to because I'm a sports fan. I know Pascal was a sports fan. Matt, you are still a basketball fan, correct?
Yep.
Nate Wallace from Redspin Sports. It's sports with a leftist perspective.
That's right. Jason, Matt, Pascal, how you doing? Glad to be on.
What's going on, Nate? How are you, man?
Hey, just getting a lot on, man. It's hard to even know where to start right now with the stuff breaking today. It's a lot to get into, but to build on what you're saying, sometimes Jack has been in Canadian dimension. He's been out in Edmonton, just talking about the way oil is just like it's a guy. I mean, you're not just Edmonton Oilers, like hockey team, but you heard the same thing. I remember like 10, 11 years ago coaching interstate.
Hey, your stream is breaking up. Nate, your Wi-Fi is cracking up.
Oh man! All right.
Is your connection good?
It should be. So I'm on this thing all day with my day job. I hear you just fine.
Oh, you got to Zoom them kids. That's right. Yeah, I don't want. We could do a whole episode about Williston, oil, boom towns, Edmonton, boom towns, the tar sands. I've been to Edmonton enough. But I opened the clip with the Muhammad Ali, and I have a picture of Colin Kaepernick on the thing for the show, the thumbnail for the show.
Yeah.
Because he became, was it 2014 or so? 2016.
That was his last. Yeah, that's when the season happened. When he started taking the knee. Well, it was complicated, remember, because he was sitting on the bench, and then they got Nate Boyer, the Green Beret guy, to come in there and slide it. Like, well, if you take a knee, right, they'll be like, as if like these racists like give a shit. Like they were booing people at the Chiefs game for literally standing there for unity, like some abstract unity to begin the season this year. So yeah, I mean, it didn't really make a difference, but yeah.
How'd you guys feel? How'd you guys feel about the knee? Me personally, I thought the sitting was way more powerful than the knee, because I've never seen a person take some sort of political stance and then in the middle of said political stance try to make their political stance easier for people to digest.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was it was obviously a calculation. I mean, look, this is the thing. I mean, I get like the disappointment, the NBA strike, that a lot of people on the left want to come down on athletes. It does have a history of business unionism, but my thing is that, like, having grown up in that world and made it to the major Division I college level, like, guys I'm so excited when anyone breaks out of that mold. And you see Kaepernick really kind of come to it later. Some say it was like maybe who he was dating, right? And influences, and whatever the influences were, they were good. And it's the kind of things that like need to start happening, because there is an industry, a cottage industry that develops really when talent is identified, especially football, basketball, at a young age, to start having people latch onto that person as sort of a vehicle to live through their own dreams, like that maybe they haven't actualized vicariously, and to latch onto them and help them funnel them into the right camps. If it's the AAU basketball circuit, just look at what's going on in Kansas basketball now, LSU. You still have a crazy situation. Will White is still coaching at LSU. Kansas with the FBI probe and Adidas, and it's just such an inherently, it's a farce, the whole amateurism thing. But as far as it relates to the knee, I mean, so my thing is, like, my bar for like athlete activism, you have to I feel like that it's a protracted struggle, and it's like we're going to be disappointed more than we're going to be excited. But we have to realize that athletics are one of the only areas of collective bargaining, of labor that like mainstream corporate media really covers because of like the sports angle where we talk about CBAs, you talk about like really what a bargaining unit is. You don't hear in mainstream media even discussions really of like the mechanics of that mechanics of organizing, how it works. It gets boiled down a lot of times in electoral politics and just sort of, you know, the endless kind of back and forth that entails.
Well, we were talking about on your show a little bit, and that's kind of one of my, I wouldn't say beefs, but one of the things why I think sports is so interesting, because we do actually talk about union labor organizing in sports constantly. It is always part of the discourse of all sports. All major sports, we talk about their unions, and in that discourse, there is a spin to spin the unions as the problem, because we're always talking about unions as the protector of these rich, spoiled athletes, and the victim is always the owner. Yeah. Right? I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the
fandom,
82.
Man. That plays into the whole mentality of fandom, you know.
But you know, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the 82 or 87 football strikes, NFL strikes, where it was constantly these pampered players that were the problem. And 87 was the first time we saw scab players replace these guys, and none of the players got to stay in the league, you know, no matter how good they played.
What a tragic movie, by the way. I mean, I'd never felt bad for worse for stabs like in my life than a couple of those stories. The dude who got like taken out of prison just to come play quarterback for a couple of days, and it's like, you know, mowing lawns in Tallahassee where I used to live, and I'm like, dang man, I can't feel bad for like stabs. I'm like, oh, this is messed up, man. And it just shows the brutal efficiency with which management can use the media. It really is a sports media industrial complex, man. I mean, these people's jobs. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Do you want to say something, Matt?
Well, I was just going to say that while you guys mentioned that, the 97-98 was that the year that the Knicks and Spurs were in the finals. Is that the shortened
season? Yeah, that was the 98-99 season. Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah, that was definitely, I think, probably the first education I got into what a strike was, honestly. And I don't remember the impression being there probably was a lot of in the media anti-union stuff then, but I don't remember myself being turned against the player in attitude. And I was probably just watching SportsCenter every single morning at that age. So yeah, that I think that's a good point about this is a place that people do encounter these sort of labor issues.
Yeah,
I also want to shout out that in the chat is a good friend of mine. He's also the one of the basketball coaches at Oakland High. I talk about him constantly on the show. He's been on the show a few times. My buddy Will, that's Coach Will. He coached Damian Lillard, who you know with the Portland Trailblazers. They of course still communicate. And there was an interesting point that there's a trainer that Will and the other coach Orlando, also a great friend, brought on to the program. They did it on their own, right? Because they didn't have a budget. Oakland High is a very poor school, very low graduation rate. So Will is extremely involved with the program. He literally works a day job to pay for him to coach basketball.
Yeah. Jason, I wish could we ask? I mean, I wish that we could maybe ask him a question that he could respond in the chat.
He'll respond.
All right, cool. Because what I wanted to ask is, like, I was just looking at a YouTube video, honestly, about Antioch High, and I know Maurice Jones-Drew went there. I know the growth of the East Bay, and we're talking about
Maurice Jones-Drew went to he went to
De La Salle, but he's from Antioch though.
He's from the area.
Yeah, and De La Salle is a whole nother thing. But anyways, the gentrification of areas like San Francisco, Oakland, other areas in the Bay Area, leading to, like, you know, the growth and, you know, Black population in a place like Antioch, and this is a common thread you see a lot of places, in places like Chicago, you know, where the growth of the little cities and townships right on the outside, you know, right outside Cook County or outside the Chicago limits, and there's a relationship there, and you know, I'm seeing more of like a sort of a high school in between the haves and have-nots, where essentially you're a public school unless you have a donor class booster club base, right? That's your power structure, de facto power structure. They can really fire and hire head coaches in football. Where I grew up in the South, I mean, it's like if the booster club wants the head coach gone, they're gone. Like, you know, the principal AD can't stand up to that kind of power. And I'm wondering if they deal with that in terms of the loss of people that are losing affordable housing in Oakland, if that's tapping into.
I might send him a link if he wants to get on the show. I'll ask him if he wants to come on, because that's something that he would probably have to answer more in depth, because he understands the transfer portal in high school sports in the Bay Area a little bit better than I do. He's explained it to me before, but it's a little bit more of a convoluted process.
So they have an official portal in the Bay Area, like the
there's a transfer process, because he's had kids come in that want to play for him that live in different cities and different school districts, because if you play for that team, you got, not just really good training, but you also got college level tutoring from your coaches. Which is
SAT prep.
No. Will in Orlando actually. No. Actually, quite the opposite. Will in Orlando actually know every teacher, and they stay on the students year round. Grades was never just a season thing, or isn't just a season thing. It's something that if you go play for them, they start kind of recruiting kids in the junior high level, right? They let you work out with them at junior high level. Yeah. And if you want to play with them, then you have to also go to study hall with them, which is a daily thing.
That's dope, because that needs to be the case. There's all too many basketball type academies, places where it is just about getting qualified through the clearinghouse. I see Najee Harris went to Antioch. Coach Will's pointing out, the Alabama running back on the NFL. He's a beast. It looks like Pascal was trying to turn that up in.
Oh, you trying to say something, Pascal?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to. I mean, you guys, you sports connoisseurs just jumped in, and I wanted to.
My bad, man. My bad.
Whoa. I mean, I don't want to dampen the mood, but I'd like to enter into the conversation on the aspect of sports that I find most fascinating. And the aspects of sports that I find fascinating, because as someone who is a student of Black politics and Black political history, is I find it fascinating how American sports, particularly football and basketball, are, for large segments of American society, the only avenue they have to look upon particularly Black men with some form of admiration. And how in this particular state that we're in America, in the age of wokeness, the post-Trump era, the rise of reactionary nationalism, with the long protracted history of race in sports, particularly in my lifetime, right? Because in the 60s, we had this kind of idyllic image of the athlete, the striving, noble athlete standing up for the civil rights movement. We had Jim Brown, we had Martin Luther King, all of them dapperly dressed. They represented, college educated. They were eloquent spokesmen, etc., so on and so forth. And then we go into the 80s and we see the hyper capitalization of all cultural production. With sports, you see, $1 million Black athletes, so on and so forth. And with the proliferation of urban culture vis-a-vis hip hop, right, we start to get this new kind of class dynamic coming into athletics, where we got the b-boy athlete. And there's an immediate kind of blowback that you see, like starting with like the Fab Five and all of these athletes who are into hip hop, Allen Iverson. And it's just a fascinating trajectory of how race, class, and popular culture categorize this whole group of Black men who are basically a different form of entertainers of the majority of Americans, who, for the large part, 5 years after their peak entertainment, almost all go broke.
Hold on, guys, 1 second. I want to just introduce our third guest, special super guest, and definitely if anybody on the panel wants to ask him any questions while we got him, let's do that, because I don't get to see this man much anymore, being that even he lives down the street from me, Black ass. This is my best friend, brother.
Oh man.
I have no more words to say other than this is a good dude. This is Coach Will of Oakland High.
What's up with
Yo,
Will, do you want to answer that question Pascal had?
What was the question? Which one?
Oh man.
Oh, like which one?
Maybe Matt can hit it off.
Let
Then I'll
Matt
take
hit
it.
it up.
Then
Let
we'll
Let
have an
Mailman
idea
hit
kind
it.
of where we're going with it. Yeah.
I was switching from my phone to my laptop.
No, it's all good. I think once
the
Matt
basic
answers
question,
it, I answer
the
it.
basic question is that in light of the way black athletes, particularly black men, are used in sports as a means of entertainment, and how sports provides pretty much the only avenue for which the majority of Americans who are white can look up at black men with some form of esteem. How do we interpret the fact that after 5 years at best of being at the pinnacle of this position of spectacle, most of the athletes, particularly the black ones, are broke after that time? They have no money. They have no value. What does that say about the way in which capitalism, class, race, color intertwine with sports? Does it say something about sports? Does it say something about capitalism? Does it say something about these athletes?
My opinion, my amateur opinion, I think that a lot of it comes down to, I mean, with capitalism, your labor is replaceable, and so it doesn't benefit the owners to have, an educated workforce. The crazy thing about it is, I think unintentionally, especially in basketball, with the salary cap and the maximum contracts, once you take away your yearly salary as your main incentive, a lot of the last 5 to 10 years of basketball players have started kind of being groomed to be businessmen. So I don't think they're as socially adept as far as some of the social issues that I would want them to be. But you see, like your LeBrons. I know when Dame told me about the rookie symposium they have every year. His agent actually told me this. Agent is actually an Oklahoma High grad, also from '82 or whatever it was. But he was basically saying, like, in the past, guys are falling asleep when the speakers are speaking, and kind of going through the motions. Even the guest speakers are going through the motions. And he said, like, that 2012 rookie symposium, like, he had never seen so many notebooks, laptops. Speakers were, like, staying an extra 30, 40 minutes answering questions, and they were like legit questions. So I think the athletes going broke thing is not going to be as much of a factor in basketball, especially. Football is,
right.
The union has no leverage, the workers have no leverage. With basketball, I mean, the last time the owners were talking about locking out the players, and the players were kind of like, well, we're just going to go around in the summertime and play in these gyms. And they're seeing how they're drawing 8,000-9,000 fans to watch them play pickup games. It's kind of like, well, we could literally just rent our own gyms, and I think the lower end of the players would probably suffer a little more initially, but then you had guys like Chris Paul and LeBron talking about, well, if they don't lock us out, we've got enough funds to put into this escrow account to help out some of these younger players that aren't on guaranteed contracts make it through. But yeah, I mean, I don't even think if I answered that question all the way. That's what you get with the internet.
He's describing the reality well. I mean, but Matt, you want to hop in though? I feel bad. Yeah, I don't. Why don't you?
I just feel like
I'll take it back up to you.
Yeah, I just feel like the left-wing thing to say is, like, it's about ownership, right? We talk. There's a confusion that gets made a lot in political media between high-income people and the people who really own a lot of the wealth in society. And of course, high-income people need to be taxed, but fundamentally, the wealth needs to be owned in some kind of equitable way. And I see Steve Ballmer on the sidelines of Clippers games, and it's like, I like Kawhi and Paul George, and all of a sudden, like, they do something good, I have to look at Steve Ballmer, like, gesticulating on the sideline. And until we get rid of those guys, I feel like
But Matt, they got rid of Donald Sterling, though. They got rid of Donald Sterling.
Right.
Steve Ballmer. You got to be
Well,
happy.
listen, I mean, this is a question. This is a question I kind of follow up, if you don't mind. Jason, I want you to jump in on this also,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
As people, and I assume we're all kind of like on the left, and what that means is that basically we have a chat. We have a critique of capitalism, imperialism, racism, and sexism. I think that's fair to say about all of us, right? That we realize that those kind of, at least those four things, are kind of at a root of the problem in American society. And we also, I think we know as people who tend to be on the left, is that we don't have, there are a lot fewer of people on our side than there are liberals and conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the same way Jason and I talk about how one of the frailties of the left is its anti-religiosity in its ability to reach large segments of American society, particularly African Americans, Black Americans, who a lot of them are church-going people.
Yeah,
there is an anti-athleticism, intellectual superiority complex. Anti-athleticism, intellectual superiority complex on the left. Many people on the left poo-poo sports and athletics as a reactionary, bourgeois distraction, and also a brutal.
I'm fired up. I'm fired up, man. I got a lot to say.
And basically see sports as the playground of the reactionaries in American society. How do we deal with that?
No, hey, I got to jump in on this because there's the things that contextualize this. Like there's that discourse has existed a very long time. There's a lot of problematic elements to it. I mean, I think some of it, I see it. I think back to my college experience being at like South Carolina, Florida State, seeing big Division I programs. The way in which like some of the professors like really like look down on like the athletes, like the unpaid athletes that are there under this system. Really driving the engine for this college and not being compensated. A lot of them first generation kids plucked right out the hood purely because of their ability to come in and benefit the program, right? It's a systemic thing. So like the commodification of Black masculinity, but then the accompanying like idea and like the repulsion with which like of that same Black masculinity by like because there are, I mean, whatever they want to say, it's not just Black masculinity. It's like it's the overall American like culture. These influences that go into it, but it's sort of like there's there's like, what are they doing here? What are these like? Why are they in the resentment that they're there instead of recognizing that this society is built upon. They weren't the one. The society is built upon the fundamental exploitation of them. I mean, you look at like the college football industry. You look at the stands at the University of Alabama. You look at like a big game at Auburn or Clemson, or out in the West Coast at USC at the Coliseum when they're humming. And it's an overwhelmingly majority white crowd. And it's built on the backs of like overwhelmingly majority Black labor. And what we talked about tonight, that the whole thing of gentrification in sports, and we're seeing it play out. The hollowing out of the public sector across the board, and sport is a microcosm of that. You have a totally different like reality and consciousness of the players with the helmets on, going out running on that field. Yeah, they like the thrill of the arena, the spectacle, like the crowd getting hyped. But they also like go into a little sign autographs, the fan day stuff. I mean, guys, there's an alienation that is real because they don't like connect on that level. To them, it is like they understand what it is, but it's something that's not like a game in the sense of just like, hey, I'm going out here to have fun. I'm going to college. And there's not enough done to really dig into that class, those class distinctions and the role like race and class play in creating that, and like the reproduction of labor within all major sports. I just think that we got to recognize with players not to like be too much of an apologist for guys who make bad statements and whatnot, but let's give shout outs to like Jaylen Brown, Justin Jackson right now. I mean, Jackson, I think, is really doing a lot in terms of being principled on calling out people on across the aisle that aren't using leverage to fight for the people and like making it less about personality politics. I think guys like him to be influential. He came at Northwestern on the heels of the movement they had to unionize the football team there. There's a lot more going on. You look at a Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics and, like, you know, his political education. I think it's about reaching out. David West and the way he's been able to, like, really push back against, like,
pretty good.
Yeah, new Cold War narratives. Like, he's got influence with a lot of young guys. So I mean, there's reasons to be pessimistic all across the board, but there is, like Coach Will alluded to it. Yeah, on the business side of it, I don't think there are going to be as many guys going broke. I think guys are much savvier. There's not as much of a focus on just being the dumb jock. They project that label. They want to be seen as multiple. A lot of these guys. So there's a mix. You still have some of that, like, guys that fit that sort of dumb jock stereotype, but it's really not just that. And it is problematic. Then where that discourse comes from on the left, of this, like, feeling that all this sport is just fundamentally reactionary, when it's such a huge part of Black culture in the South where I grew up. The Pop Warner football parks, the basketball courts, like the playing ball, and the idea that that's just, you got to understand, people actually want to play the games. You know, it's not this, like, capitalism. It's fucked up. It's like, but some people act like, they're just like, I don't know. So, yeah, jump in.
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of look at the difference between, like, you know, Richard Sherman talking about D1 players versus, like, if you go to, like, a D2 or a D3 basketball game. You know, if you go to, like, a high-end D1 game, you know, players are plastered all over the wall. They're not choosing their classes. They're choosing classes around their practice and travel schedule and what it's going to take to keep their, the API in line so the coach doesn't lose any money or get fired. And then you have, like, you know, they're treated like celebrities. The students there to watch them play are fans. They're not classmates. Whereas you go to a D2 game, and after the game, you literally see, like, you know, a player's, like, science study group be like, "Oh, you were so good."
Yeah.
Or like, when are we going to meet to do the lab or whatever it is? And it's a totally different dynamic, you know, and you know, comes down to that money thing, you know.
Well, that's one thing I definitely wanted to talk about, Will, and we've talked about this, and Nate actually sent me this real interesting Forbes article that gets into a lot of what you and I talk about. I initially called it the gentrification of sports. Pascal and I heard someone call it the neoliberalization of sports. But I want to read you guys this little clip from this Forbes article. Fewer than 1 in 5 students playing Division I hoops and 1 in 7 in all Division I sports come from families in which neither parent went to college, and their numbers are declining. Educators call such students, quote unquote, first gens, or members of the first generation of their family to attend college. It is a closely tracked figure because it's a key measure of socioeconomic opportunity. First gens are typically from poor and working class families that have difficulty paying for college without scholarships. For first gen athletes who don't go on to the pros, the vast majority, an athletic scholarship is their ticket, not just to a degree, but also for entry into the middle class. Surprisingly, the data reveal that most Division I sports experience steep drops in first-gen students between 2010 and 2015. That fall-off was dramatic even in the sports most associated with tales of uplift. In men's basketball, the sport that used to have the highest percentage of first-gens, the number plummeted by a third in just 5 years. Women's basketball experienced a similar drop. Football fell by more than 10%. Now, I say this, Will, because I don't remember how Coach Mass came into your life at Oakland High, but he also came into my life at the homeless shelter. Yeah. And the work I saw him do in a matter, I was telling Pascal, in a matter of just like 4 weeks, he had people getting out of their wheelchairs moving. He had people that hadn't raised their arm above their heads in years, touching their toes and being active again. He is he's beyond a personal trainer. I forget the actual title that he goes by, but I know it's not just a personal trainer.
Yeah, but I mean, no, having Coach Mass for the past 16 years is, I mean, just to give some background, like one of the kind of philosophies that Coach Watkins and I have with our program is to even the playing field and to give kids options. And a guy like Coach Mass should be probably charging a hefty dime for what he does for us for free. And, every time we have a chance, do we try to, come up with some budget to, give them a token of our appreciation. But, like you see a lot of, you kind of talk about the gentrification of youth basketball. You see more and more so, instead of sending kids to go Boy Scouts or whatever it may be, these kids are at age 7, 8, 9 years old are going to basketball training. 40 bucks an hour for a trainer to teach them how to play basketball. And when we have our yearly summer tournament in Tahoe, and we're charging kids basically just for gas, housing, and food, and kids, certain kids are able to pay, certain aren't, and we still make that trip happen. But those kids aren't getting personal basketball training, not to mention like strength and conditioning, performance training. So I would say, like, in our 16 years, Coach Mass was not with us. I think 2 of those years because of various reasons. And those are the only 2 years we had any type of injury issues. So just basic injury prevention, a guy like that is able to provide for us, where, I'd say most, what is the term? Inner city schools have, even with us, we have, I think last year we had like 9 coaches between 3 teams. And my first year at Oakland High, it was 2 coaches between 2 teams, and we shared 2 balls.
Hey, coach, let me ask you, because with coaching stipends, because that's a big issue where I've coached in Florida and then up here in Jersey City now, right near Matt, about 5 miles away as the crow flies probably. But anyways, it's the issue of coaching stipends. When you talk about that many assistants, how do you manage that? I mean, you're talking about guys that have careers that they're able to donate some of their time, because in this neoliberal society, I'm noticing more and more, it's just in order to sustain sports and like the programs that are doing it, it's because guys have it's a love affair. It's a labor of love, right? And
we all have day jobs.
We
all have day jobs. The varsity coach gets a stipend, and and another coach, which is usually the JV coach, gets a stipend. And so last year, my stipend got divided 4 ways. And I ate the taxes.
Yeah, man. I hear you, man. I lost money every year I coached high school football and basketball.
Here's a quick anecdote, right? So 2011, we had 3 Division I players, and I think 6 total kids end up playing at a 4-year college. And so we were like, these kids need to be seen. So that year for Little Oakland High, we played in a tournament in Torrey Pines near San Diego, Southern California. National level tournament. We went up to Seattle to play 2 teams in Seattle, just in 2 one-off games, not even a tournament. We went to Santa Maria for a single game where they paid for our hotel rooms, but we had to get down there and whatever.
Santa Maria is about 4 hours from the Bay Area.
But mind you, that was a single game in the middle of a tournament. The people running the tournament brought in, I think, 6 teams to play a showcase in the middle of their tournament, and we were one of those teams. I'd say that year we fundraised about, I think, $12,000, and we spent about 16. So,
Matt, what was sports like where you're from in the Dakotas?
So it's interesting when Pascal was talking with that question. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, but growing up as a white kid in North Dakota, the first sort of representations or looks at not only like sort of black life, but also urban and I guess deep poverty was books my dad recommended, which was the Connie Hawkins biography called Foul and Magic Johnson's biography called I'm not sure what that one was called, but I remember reading those, and that was the first time I ever really got exposed to anything like that outside of my experience. So I kind of, it is massively important, and I didn't really even understand or reflect on those books because that was the jock part of my life, and right. So I sort of, that's pre-leftist me, but I think it definitely is. That was the first time, talking with my dad about Connie Hawkins, like this is a guy you can look up to and learn from. And also I mean, yeah, what Connie Hawkins went through growing up, I think it's from Brooklyn, if memory serves. It's been a long time since I read that. I also want to bring up just a little bit of North Dakota history. Do you guys know that Satchel Paige played his first integrated baseball game in North Dakota?
I did not know
that. So this isn't I didn't know this either growing up. I found out about this living in Brooklyn, and it's a shame that North Dakota doesn't have a monument to this history. But Satchel Paige, there's this guy, the Churchills, the Bismarck Churchills was the team name. Churchill is this guy who ran this automobile company in Bismarck. And so in 1935, they started, they had all these teams, and we talk about the Green Bay Packers ownership model as opposed to, Ballmer. Municipal ownership of teams was a big thing. A lot of they literally paid public employees for a shortstop around these different North Dakota towns. And I'm sure this was the case throughout America at this point during the Depression. But anyway, they got Satchel Paige and a few other Negro League players in, and he just completely, dominated here. One report, and I don't know if it was accurate, but he threw 18 strikeouts the first game. And there's a story. Yeah, it's this book called Colorblind by Tom Dunkel that goes into. If memory serves, Jamestown wanted an all-white team after this was going on a little while, and Bismarck had the integrated team, and the Bismarck team ended up winning. But I guess I bring that up just to say that I didn't know about that growing up. That sort of amazing history of integrated sports in 1935, so a dozen years before Jackie Robinson. And so I guess the other thing that sports did was you would occasionally go to the reservation. That was the only time I ever went to the reservations, playing Belcourt, particularly. I remember a lot. And that was the only time I ever saw conditions. And it was only in your car, unload at the gym, and then get back in and go. But that's, I guess.
Go ahead and finish. No,
you go ahead. I was done.
Reservations in North Dakota was the first time. I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm a black dude from California, from a city in California. Never fucking seen a reservation in real life in my life. I thought I was gonna go to North Dakota and that shit was gonna be like Thunderheart with Val Kilmer, and then people was gonna welcome me with open arms, and it was gonna be a beautiful experience. And I saw a reservation. I was like, oh shit. I was like, this shit is real.
Yeah.
And to think Kareem actually coached at the reservations, I think in Arizona for a while. So Matt, there's a question for you here from our good friend Francis. She's a journalist. Matt, did you go to the Kyrie Irving Lakota naming at the Standing Rock Casino?
I was literally about to bring that up.
Was it? If it was Prairie Nights, I've been there. Yeah, I don't remember if that was the one they're talking about, but I remember. Yeah, that was great story.
I want to pivot real quick. So Francis also brought up, we talked about gentrification in sports, and we're talking about this from a leftist perspective. One thing we definitely have to bring up is stadiums. And a lot of people don't know the history of Chavez Ravine here in California. So where the Dodgers play.
Oh, man, Jason, you killed. Yeah, I can't make my last point, man.
All right, man. I'm trying to keep this shit in an hour. You got to get us to zero books. Doug Lane be hollering at me.
Bro, I mean, I got it, man. I got to wrap up, man. I'm gonna wrap
it up.
Yeah. So, I think what's important to point out is what you see with Coach Will. These people need to be respected. People like Robert Hampton, who is a friend of mine in Jersey City, but doing all they can, but what it's showing is that his program's getting support, and you're starting to see this. The IMGs in Florida, the DeMatha Catholics in Maryland, the schools that are the private I just mentioned there, but a lot of the big public schools, and you're hearing about those at the Nike showcases they do out in Oregon. For football and basketball, you got used to have ABCD camp, Nike camp, and I think that it's important to point out that is a microcosm of neoliberalism. It's like coaches are doing all they can, communities are doing all they can to provide kids an opportunity to get out to where they can see another world, not just the whole motif or idea of making it out the hood type stuff, but actually trying to build like organization and structure in a society that's hollowed out these social institutions, defunded the institutions of social uplift and support that we've seen, as Pascal referenced, going back to the 80s and really personified with Jordan. I just think it's important to note that, look, we need to keep supporting what people are doing on the ground, but recognizing that unless we have a huge apartheid gap in high school sports. I saw it proliferate after starting to coach in 09 in inner city Jacksonville, and how you're seeing guys really not be able to come out and get seen kind of wherever anymore, because there's the gap between the haves and the have-nots in high school basketball and high school football continues to grow. And I think that's just something that needs to be highlighted.
I want to jump in real quick. So what we're saying is that literally the economics of youth athletics, which are acquiring more capital outlay in earlier stages to get kids into youth sports, the ability to get kids to get trained to be able to play sports, because public schools are not being subsidized by either the state or athletic programs are not necessarily going to public schools to recruit. The capital is being shifted to middle-class, second-generation college-educated kids who are more likely to have the capital. And as a consequence of that, the traditionally poor, traditionally black and brown kids who use sports as a means of social and economic uplift being left out. And now, if it is brown kids, it's brown kids who are more affluent, or it might be white kids or biracial kids. And that's basically what's happening across the board in professional sports right now.
Great. I'm glad we summated that. Perfect, Pascal. I just wanted to make sure, before we left that point, I'm glad both of us got to say what we just did there, because I think those are both really important.
You want to say something?
A quick anecdote or kind of a story on that topic. I'd say one of the only things that is different from us than most of the other Oakland schools is, Dame takes care of us. So I'd say about 8-9 years ago, college coaches really stopped coming to the Oakland public schools to recruit. Whether it's grades, whether it's people moving to Sacramento, Antioch, whatever it is. And so that's why we were traveling so much to get our kids seen, because we're able to. So one of the things we did about 5-6 years ago, I think it's 6 years now, might even be more, but no, it's actually 8 years. Instead of traveling down to Torrey Pines or to, wherever for a holiday tournament, we started our Dame Lillard holiday tournament at Oakland High. And one of the things we kind of went out of our way to do, this prior to COVID, we brought in a team from Alabama, we brought in Compton High, and then we have our local suburban schools that can afford to pay. But basically, over the past 3 years, we've averaged about 10 to 12 college coaches coming into our gym. Were they there to recruit any of our kids? No, but they saw some of our kids because of other kids, and that was kind of how we were kind of utilizing Dame's support to kind of try to even the playing field. Not just for us, but the Climans came to our tournament, Fremont High came to our tournament one year, and it was just if we just travel around using our resources, I don't think we'd be doing justice to, the advantages we have.
Man.
Yeah, I mean,
much Coach Will, much respect, man. That's dope, man, and amazing. But it shows that you got Dame and so many schools. It's awesome, and I love the pro athletes doing it. But it does highlight the fact that systemically, the fact that if it weren't for Dame, look how much pressure is being put on these pro athletes. They see that, they feel that. The Marshawn Lynch's, the Dames, and it's. I mean, that's why I'm so hesitant to pile on them. Sometimes, even though I hate when Obama jumps in and ends the strike type stuff, I know the kind of pressure they're up against. And I'm just saying, if people aren't willing to go on strike themselves, right, in their own jobs, right, I think at least I'm not saying don't be critical. I'm just saying that sometimes it's just like Pascal was referenced. Left is just the knee-jerk reaction is that just athletes, it's the dumb jock kind of thing comes back up. And as I said, I was disappointed too, but I just think that it's not all bad is all I'm trying to say. There is good stuff that's in the works, and you see what Coach Will's referencing, and I'm just trying to say just sports, keep an open mind, leftist. I'm here with you. There's a lot messed up, man. It needs to be.
There's a big reason why I talk about Will, besides him being really this guy just isn't my best friend. He's there when my kids were fucking born. He was there when I got married at the courthouse the first time. What he does with those kids, you know, I Will's probably, I hope he doesn't get mad at me. So he coached at the high school we went to, and we went to a high school in a very nice area called Albany, California. It's a small suburb outside of Berkeley, and he coached there. He was going to have a majority of kids that were all going to have high GPAs, and a lot of them were playing sports to put on their college application. And he left that job to go take a more challenging job in Oakland. So not out of any charity, but just because he wanted to do it.
One of the things I've been kind of thinking more and more about over this whole pandemic time of, you know, not coaching for the first time in 24 years is, you know, I think I'm doing some pretty cool stuff, but I also more and more kind of feel it's kind of cringeworthy when you kind of paint it like it's a, like, you know, the whole white savior poverty, trauma porn and shit. Like,
Hey, Will, I gotta ask, so y'all aren't being allowed to play in California at all? Because I know in Jersey they're playing with, and it's been back. I know New York City's not. Long Island is, like, it's been really hot button. All the South is. But there was like empty gyms. Now the parents are allowed. I'm wondering what's the deal in California.
I'm glad you brought that up because talking about the gentrification of youth sports, I won't name any names because I try to be, not ruffle any feathers. But in California, haven't been playing, and over the past few months, there's been certain coaches from certain areas that have resources that have been suing the state, and their whole little hashtag is "Let them play." Like,
right,
yeah. Like the government is just like, we don't want kids playing sports because
it's
we just
huge in Michigan too right now.
We're trying to not get kids killed. But I received an email from one of the Northern California organizations trying to get us to kind of jump on board, and I didn't respond either way, but I just think that a lot of it is very I don't even know the right word for it, but it doesn't affect our kids the same way it affects their kids.
So I want to ask Matt this because I know you're from the Dakotas and your governor has done kind of a horrible job with COVID. Are they playing sports in the Dakotas? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure they are. All of my cousins and stuff are. What?
Yeah. It's only 2 or 3 states that aren't.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, really?
Ideologically, most of the country's all open back up, man. I mean,
really?
When you're in Florida, so high school football season, I was at a high school football game in October and back in Jacksonville, and I mean, I was like keeping my distance and stuff, but like the student section was packed. Like, there's just, that's what most of America is like. So it's like people hear that where we are, Matt's in Brooklyn, I'm in Jersey City, and like, or out in the Bay Area, people are like, what the heck? But it's like, welcome to neoliberal America, federalism. You got to love it, right? We're just, we're so free. So all these crazy ass state governors can just do all this like crazy batshit bullshit as if the virus gives a shit about state lines. I
do want to say this to the people in the chat that love saying who I should and shouldn't get on the show. I can't get people from small newspapers sometimes to come on the show or even reply to an email. So if you think I'm going to send a message to an NFL football player to come on my show and his ass is going to be like, well, sure, why not? I don't know him. We don't have any of the same friends. Like, just to get Matt on the show, there's people that we know in the same world. So he can be like, man, this asshole just emailed me. Y'all know him? He say no. Yeah. He's a good dude. You go on the show. He's a good guy. Oh, okay. Like, shit just don't work like that, right? It don't. I heard Nate because he was on
Moderate Rebels or like by any means necessary. By any means necessary every week.
Jackie Lukman is homies with Pascal. Like we.
She's amazing, by the way. Follow Lukman Nation, man. She's
so it's not like I can holler at Justin Jackson and be like, "Say, brother,
He might do. I got to say, we had Justin Jackson on TMBS, and that kind of worked out that way. It was right when he was getting really political. That I think he's maybe a little bit more busy in terms of his media availability at this point. But I think he's
got a new show now, though, Matt. He's got a new show. You heard? You checked that out, or?
I haven't yet, but I think if people want to see that, they should tweet at him. I think that's how that thing usually happens. That's how interviews work in this. Y'all might do it.
You want these cats on the show? You holler at these cats. You don't. I wish I could show you the list of people that we talk to or try to talk to.
They want to big time you.
Oh man. Oh, like our guest for Thursday. That's been a conversation. Our guest for Thursday, and that is through Preston Smith is through people that we know. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And finally he confirmed for Thursday, and we've been talking about this for like 2 months.
Jason, one thing in the chat that someone was bringing up, I forget the commenter, but she was commenting up. Where's her name? But anyway, it's about Title IX, and it's a really important point. And I feel like that she was saying a lot. And Joe, I think maybe it's Joanna. I might be wrong, but it was. Yeah, it was about Title IX. And one thing that's like I really resent is how not Title IX. Title IX is great, but I resent the way in which they're pitting like the revenue sport athletes of like, men's basketball, football, and women's basketball, even at certain schools now, and baseball at a few, and making it seem like it's their responsibility to like, have their free labor fund the entire athletic departments, as opposed to like, the powers that be, these institutions seeing the value in those scholarships, but keeping those programs going, like seeing the pedagogical value and like in learning to work together as a team. That's really what college sports should be if we're talking reality. But like, it's not. I mean, we know NCAA Division I men's basketball, the money that's made with that. If they cancel the tournament 2 years in a row, they want to have insurance on it. So there's a big reason that's happening now. But the idea that like, football and men's basketball players, and then look at the way Jalen Johnson was brutally, just viciously attacked by the Seth Davises of the world, John Rothstein's, Dan Dockich's over like quitter, blah, blah, blah. And it's like these same guys are like selling T-shirts, like making money off the free labor tournament coming up here in a couple weeks. John Rothstein, I'll throw his name out there. So the hypocrisy is unbelievable, man.
Did you see what Jay Billis said about that whole situation?
Yeah, it was dope, man. And look at what they did. Yeah, he's awesome. Dan Dockett.
Do you still follow hoops, Matt? Do you still watch ESPN on a daily basis? Or are you too busy with your shows?
I don't follow it on a daily basis, but I have like League Pass, and I put it on when I do like research and stuff like that. So, and I play NBA 2K like crazy. So I'll usually have the game on, the TV behind me while I play 2K.
Who's your squad?
I like everybody a little bit. Being from North Dakota, you kind of get to adopt. I'm a Blazers fan. Damian Lillard, if not my favorite player, one of my favorites. I was looking for my Blazers hat earlier. I'm not sure what I did with it. But yeah, I don't know. I like good games basically. So first round of the playoffs is basically my favorite time of the year.
Yeah. Quick question: how do I post something in the chat? Am I able to?
You have to go actually physically on the chat. You can't do it from here. You have to like go to Facebook or YouTube or one of those things and post it. Okay. So Will just sent me an article about a good friend of ours from high school. Speaking of not being able to get a hold of anybody, I haven't physically talked to this woman since I accidentally ran into her at a thing, and she was with one of her players. Who's the tall white girl? The really tall white girl. No, the tall white girl.
Oh, you're talking to him, yeah.
Brittany Griner.
Say again. No, not her. The other one, the white one.
Brianna Stewart.
Is that her
Deladon.
name?
Elena
Deladon. Yeah. Lindsay was with Deladonna, who's like, what's she like 6'7"?
Yeah.
She's hella tall.
She's a phenomenal player.
She's with this woman. I don't see her. I see Lindsay. So this is our friend from like high school, right? We're a little bit older than her, so we would take her out late all over the Bay Area doing shit we wasn't supposed to be doing with her. And she went on to become a very large agent in the WNBA.
She is in the WNBA.
She is the agent in the WNBA. Any major star in the WNBA, and even she had some UFC fighters. She had Gina Carano for a while. She is their agent. So I guess there's an article that Will's posting in the chat that actually talks about our friend. What did she do? Will she led the strike? The WNBA strike? Organized it?
She basically organized the election of the dude in Atlanta. Was it Warnock?
Yeah.
Yeah. They got because of Leffler.
A lot of the social stuff that that's going on that the WNBA is ahead of. She's really involved with that. Not only just with the WNBA, but also through her connections with the NBA because she used to work in the NBA to start. The whole Donald Sterling thing. Yeah. I remember.
Oh God, yeah, we talked to her. She would never come on this show because she'd get too comfortable, and she'd accidentally spill some beans. Like we used to call. I'm not even gonna say. The inside dope we got from Lindsay, and Will, you know this because you still talk. I can't even talk to her anymore. The inside shit we would get from her is on another level.
Yeah, I've known her since she was like 5, and I'd say around like by the time she was like a freshman in high school, we kind of knew she'd be like no one was surprised she became an agent.
Right.
You know,
no.
Right.
Even so I saw her. I see her. I told you the story, Will. I see her with this basketball agent. She sees me. She's got a very, very raspy voice. She's about 5'7", but she's not a large woman. She's very, athletically built. And she's like, Jason Miles, what the hell are you doing here? And she comes over. She gives me a hug, and she's first trying to get me to meet her athlete, this very large white woman. And I haven't seen Lindsay in forever, and this is like one of my best friends. So I'm sitting here talking. We're talking. She's like, meet Delta. I'm like, yeah, how you doing? You're very tall. And I'm talking to Lindsay. And so Lindsay goes, Jason, can you tell her that I used to play sports? My players never believe I played sports. I was like, didn't you win 2 national championships your first 2 years of college?
Jason, never underestimate how quick the next generation forgets, my man.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting because I actually went to law school with the woman who was the founding director of the WNBA. Her name is Pamela Wheeler. She teaches at Columbia now. She was there from the beginning. Black woman, as a matter of fact, as well.
No shit.
Yeah. She was the founding director of the WNBA.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try something new.
Shout out to Janice Graham, by the way. She asked us. She said she's on the chat.
Yo, we definitely shout out.
I'm gonna try something new. Hold on.
Women of the WNBA need a shout out in general, though.
Hold on. This is the hour for Zero Books. For those of you staying for This Is Revolution, stick around. We're going to talk some shit for a little bit longer. All right. I got
Stadiums.
Your boy Sam Cedar, Matt.
Was that?
That's my cut. That's my edit for the Zero Book Show.
Oh yeah.
Hey, so the reason why me and Pascal were on for hella long, and you weren't the reason why, but somebody got on the chat or sent me a message. They said, "Oh, on the Majority Report, Matt Lech mentioned he was going to come on your show, and all these people said that you should get Vaush on your show." And I went the fuck off.
Oh,
I went the fuck off.
God, he's had a big racist highlight or low light reel of the COVID pandemic year. Like you can imagine, this cat has been on a roll, man. It's like.
Nate, tell Pascal who this dude is, because Pascal doesn't.
Or Matt, I don't know, man. Matt, you'd be probably better.
Matt, you would know better than all of us. Matt, you tell Pascal who this cat is.
I honestly don't
know, man.
Yeah, if you guys want to jump in, because my understanding of Vaush is he's a YouTuber, right? And he does kind of what we do at the Majority Report, I guess commentary and stuff like that. I mean, his most pronounced, I guess, at least where you see him the most is in comment sections with his fans saying "Get Vaush on."
Taking on the tankies all the time is his number one.
Yeah, he does get in fight with certain parts of the left. I've noticed, although I to be honest, I haven't followed any of that stuff closely enough to be able to characterize it. But is it made? I mean, I saw one thing recently where he said, that people going after the parliamentarian were being Bernie bro sexist, but I think he was being ironic about that. So I think he's kind of an attention guy. I think.
Yeah, but he's also just
it rubbed me the wrong way. It rubbed me the wrong way, hella bad, and I don't know why. Maybe because me and Pascal, for me it's too early in the morning, and Pascal was hella laughing at me. He's like, "Man, I ain't seen you this mad."
Well, what about how he literally said there's no difference between like revolutionary black nationalism, making a distinction between oppressed nationalities that have been oppressed by colonialism and reactionary white supremacists like white nationalism. There's no distinction between like looks like Harry Haywood, Black Bolshevik, or Fred Hampton, people that like it's not like Fred. They're looking to like say their idea of black nationalism is some like exclusionary. What's about power though, and about like there being a coherent like language and set of culture that developed in the Black Belt South, and that was an oppressed culture. Just look at Reconstruction and Du Bois and Black Reconstruction in America. Like blew my mind really, and it's like Vaush has no understanding of any of that. Like in the and how like the national question, like in not realizing that look, nationalism can be extremely reactionary, but for so many oppressed peoples, to just like reduce everything down to as if like none of that matters is very like privileged to say the least, and very revealing of a very like white like middle class like just really oblivious mentality. I mean, yeah.
See, that's what I thought Destiny was all about. I didn't know Vaush was on that as well. That's
I don't like that dude either. I mean, they both get no, in the great words, they gets no play in my ride.
Nate is a Leninist.
I don't even know.
Hey, could be possible.
But Will posted this in the chat, so if you guys want to read about our
getting red baited.
If you guys want to read about our good friend and homegirl Lindsay Kagawa, I forget her new married last name. She also does this really awesome thing. If you know her personally, she has this child, this little beige child, and every year they dress him up like a different album cover for his birthday. Or was it every month up until his first birthday? There's this like photo. I was showing my girl that it's the cutest shit in the world when they dressed him up like Tupac in the All Eyes on Me cover.
Put it on the screen, man.
Nah,
I can't do that. It's a personal. But this shit is too fucking funny. They dress his ass up like
Jason. It's funny how like I started this like my ADHD man like we were about to start off DMs. We had it going. And I just could not. I had to make that last point, and then Pascal dropped some awesome knowledge on the back end, and now here we are. What, like 30 minutes later? Just
let me ask you, Matt. You can say a little bit longer.
I'm not being critical. I love it. I'm just saying it's just funny.
I just got to make my
discourse rolls sometimes, right?
So let me get in the state. So I was gonna play this originally as the opening clip, and I decided I'm not gonna play for the opening clip. I might close with it, but there's a history to Los Angeles and the Dodgers that not a lot of people talk about, and that is the history of Chavez Ravine. So as we talk about being leftist, we talk about sports. Let's talk about stadiums. So I was going to be as quick as possible, and then I want to get your guys's. I definitely want to get Pascal's feedback on it because as I talk longer, his scowl gets stronger. So, so Chavez Ravine was three different barrios, three different areas, right, of vast open land, and there was like farming on it. Latin cats couldn't buy houses for the most part in a lot of areas. There was also like, we want to keep our neighborhoods white for them as well. Redlining existed for them as well. So they built these homes and farmed. They didn't even have access to a lot of the hospitals. So their infant mortality rate was actually very high. So they have this community of about 3,000 or so. And the city decides they just got $100 million of government money to build public housing. And they're going to build the first big public housing project throughout Chavez Ravine. And they're going to house about 17,000 people in this public housing project. We're talking schools, infrastructure, parks, the whole nine, right? So they go to the citizens and they say, we have the permission to buy your house from you for market rate. So a lot of the people sold their houses because, I mean, let's keep in mind, they built these houses. A lot of houses didn't even have indoor plumbing in this area. They buy these houses for less than market. The people that leave are now fucked because they can't afford to go buy in the market in LA, which is only a mile away. There's pushback by developers for the public housing project, and the LA Times, who is at this point vehemently against government-owned housing, say that public housing is a communist endeavor. And the man behind the housing, they actually call him a communist. He never was. Paint him a communist. The project gets scrapped. The moment the project gets scrapped, private development comes in because the city already owned this land and owned all these houses, and only a few remained, which were shanties at that point. The O'Malley family, who we know as the owners of the Dodgers, and I think they might even own the Lakers too, right? Or just the Dodgers?
They're the ones who betrayed Brooklyn. Yeah.
So they come in and say, well, we want to build this beautiful stadium here in Los Angeles on this land. And there actually is footage of them bulldozing the final people's homes, because the few people that were still there were definitely protesting it. So Chavez Ravine is literally built on a area that was a predominantly Hispanic area.
And Jason, it was also a sacred Chicano burial ground too. It was there's a great documentary. It's actually on Amazon Prime. I just checked. Chavez Ravine, a Los Angeles story. I think there's been some better ones probably too, but some powerful stories. I mean, there was you look at the O'Malleys and the way they schemed to get out of Brooklyn. They had to get the New York Giants, the baseball Giants, with Willie Mays at the time, who literally you could see the Polo Grounds from Yankee Stadium. Used to have World Series like that. They had to get them to move to San Fran before the 1958 season, but they had those secret deals the O'Malleys did while they were still playing in Brooklyn, going on with the LA people to put the Chavez Ravine stuff in the works without public input. And the Dodgers that played even the 59 World Series against the White Sox was played at the LA Coliseum, actually, believe it or not. And you had the crazy dimensions, where I forget which one, but the center field was insanely long, but it's a really messed up story. There's a whole sordid history behind it that's even darker, than just the Hispanic. It's there was truly there were cemeteries they just completely destroyed.
And then there's a school. There's a school. They took the roof off of a school that the kids went to and just dumped. They had to level a hill.
Yeah.
So if you excavate, you would find a school. So that story is from the early 50s, late 50s. Pascal, do you think it repeated with the Brooklyn Dodgers?
I thought you were saying the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm sorry, I said Brooklyn Dodgers. Brooklyn Nets. You're right. That's what I meant to say, Will. Thank you for correcting me. The Brooklyn Nets, and using Jay-Z as this what would you call them, Pascal?
Investment.
Gentrify the block. Gentrify the block, isn't that?
No, I mean the Brooklyn Nets endeavor was pretty slick, right? They got working class black people to be invested in a stadium building project that's going to, reorient the neighborhood, bring large amounts of capital, probably and obviously displace a large black population under the guise of supporting black capitalism, because Jay-Z's behind it. It's a perfect bait and switch, because now people can say Jay-Z's bringing the Nets to Brooklyn, and no one's going to really question who got displaced or what kind of what exactly was the labor unionized to help build that stadium, or were the rates that were being paid? How did that affect the housing reality in the neighborhood when the stadium went up? Did it really bring revenue to the community? I mean, what are the long-term consequences? I mean, I've read reports that usually these stadiums that, get massive subsidies from the cities don't necessarily bring large return on investments to particular neighborhoods. The cities may get some revenue. So I'd like any of you guys to really elaborate in terms of what exactly are the economic ramifications.
When the Oakland Raiders came back to Oakland, California, there was a whole big to-do about wanting to add on more seats. Hold on one second.
Go for it. Jason, I know this story inside and out. So they built a whole upper deck, right? In the last 20 years of the Raiders, almost in Oakland, was essentially tarped over. So they spend all this money to build an upper deck, ruin the you had there. I remember as a kid, I was visiting out there as like a 10-year-old, and like, you know, they were building this, and you're like, it's just a monstrosity. And then that was all paid for. And they never had any intention to want to stay in Oakland either. You know, you look at what Mark Davis and isn't, I think, but anyway.
Well, the San Francisco market opened up in a way that I don't think people really understand, because where the Giants play now was nothing. It's landfill. And that's also the Warriors play literally down the street from the Giants. And my girl took me to a Warriors game a couple Christmases ago. It's nice, but it definitely is the Tech Stadium, if that makes any sense.
It's not the energy of the Oracle, you know.
No, but the Oracle. I mean, I'll look. This is a sports show, so we can get sports fanny on this. All right, so Matt, that goes to you too. You can get sports fanny on here. You definitely can cuss on here. This is the show where you can get let loose. So these motherfuckers that was going to the and Will can attest to this, because Will's punk ass was going to the Warriors games when nobody was at that bitch. No, my dad was like, "Hey, I got these 2 tickets to the Warriors. You want to see LeBron?" I was like, "I don't want to go see them motherfuckers play." When the Warriors had nobody on that fucking team in the early 2000s, you could have drove a truck around the stadium. No one wanted to go there. Once they started winning, and that's the same thing that happened with the Giants when they won that first World Series in like 2012. Everybody you saw in San Francisco and Oakland had a fucking Giants hat on. As a lifelong Giants fan, living in the East Bay, I wouldn't say I caught ass whoopings, but I got clowned real fucking hard when the Giants lost the World Series in '89.
Oh, because that was against the A's. That was the earthquake series.
Yeah, it's the earthquake series. And Will knows. And he stepped away. Didn't even shut the damn camera down. Will,
but Jason,
I was looking for my hand-drawn Mike Felder baseball card.
Yo, but Jason, and y'all, this is wild. Check this out. So they literally had to shut down. Someone in the chat put about how these stadiums are serving as vaccination sites. So when Ohio State played Alabama in Miami for the college football playoff national championship in January, like they had to shut down, and literally COVID testing just did not happen all during the day in order to put a spectacle on, like during the pandemic, with unpaid athletic laborers, you know, on the field, under the guise of like, oh, this is the virtue of amateurism. You know, this is going before the Supreme Court again, March 31st. You know, they literally fooled guys like Darren McFadden, former running back. They thought they were like going to be what they were going to put in their testimony, what they were, you know, swearing under, you know, their statement was going to be supporting the NCAA's brief, right? No, they actually were like, well, you know, everything they said contradicted what. So the NCAA can't even get out of their way. It's same with the Minnesota basketball player, former one. Continuation of the Ed O'Bannon struggle, you know, over, you know, but it's the name of like this stuff is wild. They know on it. They're just using it and pushing back on it to try to, like, you know, hold on to power a little bit longer. There's going to be a schism in NCAA,
and now, so all the teams in Oakland bounced, right? The Warriors bounced, the Raiders bounced, and the A's are finna bounce.
You really think they are? I heard San Jose was like trying to build a stadium. Is that still?
No, San Jose has. There's a whole team rights thing with the Giants down there. They're talking about building a stadium by the water. And what is it, West Oakland, Will, or downtown?
Okay.
This motherfucker.
Oh, nice card, man. Yeah, I like that. So
I drew that like in 8th grade.
Yo, if I were at my parents' house, man, I could bring it. I could go toe to toe with you, pulling out the old card books, man. There's a market for those things that's coming back too.
But look, Will can tell you because he stays in Oakland too. The homeless shelter I worked at was actually right by the stadium, which is now kind of a parking lot for people to live in. I got to give Steph Curry some props. I don't know how you guys feel about Steph Curry. Steph Curry actually did some work with another classmate of me and Will's, Devon Franklin. I think they made a movie together or something. Steph Curry actually went back to Oakland to do some outreach during like Christmas and Thanksgiving, giving out turkeys and shit. And I know giving out turkeys is kind of like whatever, but
a lot around town.
Say again?
He's done a lot around town.
Yeah, he does shit. I got to give him props because when the Warriors left, they left Oakland with owing them, was it $40 million or $4 million in a tax bill?
But I don't know, but there's a big difference between the Warriors moving across the Bay Bridge and the Raiders moving to like literally Las Vegas, though. I mean, it's like there's like the Warriors
be Las Vegas.
let me just make. But I'm talking from a national perspective. I feel you locally. I know. I mean, I know the gap is that real. But you have them wearing Oakland jerseys still. I was watching the Warriors game last week.
Yeah.
They're still repping Oakland on the.
Yeah.
So it's like they're holding on to that market. You know, they're the Bay Area's only NBA team.
How do you feel about that, Matt?
Well, my stadium story. Are you familiar with the Ralph Engelstad UND stadium story? Either Jason.
Is that in Grand Forks?
Oh,
that's right, Grand Forks.
Matt,
remember was Ed Schultz the play-by-play guy for them in North Dakota forever too? I always heard that.
He has a North Dakota connection, but if he was a play-by-play guy back in the day, I'm not familiar with it. But that would make a lot of sense. But so Ralph Engelstad, a hotel casino owner in Vegas. I think the Imperial Hotel, I can't remember exactly what it's called, got sanctioned by Las Vegas in the 90s for having birthdays on Hitler's birthday with like a swastika birthday cake. So like the Las Vegas casino owners were like, this guy, you're hurting our reputation as Las Vegas casino owners. So this guy, this is all like proper like newspaper too. I'm not even like I don't have to worry about lawyers. And so this guy, before he's about to die, he donates to, and I wish, like stadiums, capitalists actually don't usually spend their own money on this, but this guy actually spent his own money donating it to the school at UND. But he put in the contract that you have to keep that logo and the name, the Fighting Sioux nickname, for as long as I want. So it's literal like Nazi trying to keep this. So I mean that's what I always think of when I think of stadiums. I thought
they had to get rid of the Fighting Sioux. I thought
they did. And they got rid of, I think, the logos as well. But it took a lot of extra work because they were like put into the granite and stuff like that.
Well,
so side note, North Dakota side note. There is a place called the Dog Mahal in Grand Forks across the street from the campus that you can get a waffle and a hot dog and buy a comic all at the same place. And my boy runs it. And I'm shout out to the Dog Mahal.
I gotta find a way to. It's in Grand Forks. I gotta make my way there sometime. But I was just gonna say though that just summarize the NCAA issue on mascotry, Native American mascotry. I mean, it's personal. I'm a Florida State University graduate. The Seminoles thing. I mean, it's so riddled in contradictions because the Seminole tribe of Florida supports it. But then again, it's like the Seminole Hard Rock in Broward County. You got clearly a class of. Abdul Malik talks about this really well. Kind of just like you have in, any oppressed, group and nationality, a class of elite sort of, and they become sort of the ones that are the spokespeople. So I know at Florida State, they have made deals with the Seminole tribe of Florida. From what I understand, the Seminole tribes that have, Andrew Jackson Trail of Tears out to Oklahoma are not cool with it still. And, they've made, so at the NCAA banned them. So the way Florida State has gotten around it, you have to have a tribe sanction the use of your mascot. And as long as that economic relationship's in place where Florida State is helping economically, the name can stay. Whereas North Dakota, the Sioux, first of all, we're not down with that. And then you look at an issue like Illinois, the Fighting Illini, that was literally just a made up like caricature. Chief Alanawak, it's one of the most offensive looking like crazy dance. I mean, the Atlanta Braves Chief Knock-a-Homer, I think, was the worst ever. I mean, the guy that come out of the TP in center field.
I forgot his name was Knock-a-Homer.
Knock-a-Homer. Like,
I never heard that.
I forgot it's next level, man. All Hank Aaron's career, you'll see he'll hit a home run, and then Chief Knock-a-Homer comes out and like does his little thing. It's really best up.
I used to have this Cleveland Indians hat with the Indian on it, and there was a guy. Do you remember Chase Choate's brother, Lance Choate? Will?
Yeah.
I worked with Lance Choate at this paint shop in Berkeley. And I had that hat on one day and he goes, "Hey man, you wearing that hat is fucked up to me." I didn't really put two and two together that he was fucking native. And he was like, "Would you like it if I had a hat that said the fucking niggers on it?" And I was like, "No."
And Lance was hardcore too.
Lance was very hardcore about that shit.
Hey Jason, look what Joshua Sanchez said in the chat there. Like, as long
as natives are cool, white people can do a chomp and say the chant.
Yeah. So what he's referring to is in Florida. There's Florida State University's the Seminoles, and they brought this, and Deion Sanders brought the chop to Atlanta, like they popularized it with the Braves, who still use that. But the Florida Gators do the chomp, where they're like that. And they wear the orange and blue. Florida State wear garnet and gold, but it's like that's sort of the backdrop, the chop and the chomp, and but the Gator thing, even they had their own scandal about Gator bait and how they had to stop doing that. The University of Florida band would be dun 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 Gator bait, and it would be like a big kind of like big plays, like they're the Florida Gators, so like the idea would be like the other team is Gator bait, that's like a rival.
Okay, but it's not like racist or anything.
No.
There's a racial history behind it.
There absolutely is. Yeah, so even Lawrence Wright, the black player in the 90s that kind of popularized like that from the player's perspective, there's a whole history of like it's really I'm just going to be up front. It's really terrible. It's awful. It's like the idea of like little black babies being like gator bait, essentially.
There was a time, supposedly there was a time in Florida in which, a lot of people in the swamp area, there was a time that it was alleged that they would steal black infants and put them in cages and use them for bait to catch alligators.
Right. It's all.
Oh my God.
That's the history, man.
There's a video documentary about that. Yeah.
What'd you say?
The mascot of the Compton High School.
What's the
what's Compton?
Is it Easy E?
Nah, I wish it was. No one knows that the mascot for Compton High. It is the Compton High Tar Babes.
Oh, what?
What is the Tar Babe, Will?
You want to elaborate?
Let's see if I can find the picture of the mascot.
What did you? So when Compton High came to play, did your mouth just drop and say, "Oh"?
I've known it for like years.
Okay,
but like I told the kids, I was like, watch what their mascot is.
Yo, Matt, while he's looking that up, what's the rivalry like in North Dakota between like NDSU and UND? Is it like not really that? I mean, how would you? I don't know. I'm kind of irrelevant.
It's not hockey teams.
Yeah, it's nothing because they each excel in different sports. So UND just rolls hockey, and NDSU rolls football.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, but also to your point, I will say those polls where it's like such and such percentage of the population of Sioux are okay with the nickname. Like those things were huge currency in any sort of conversation you have with the family members about that issue.
Yeah, no, it's really that just then it gets to Fox News to bring them on, right? And they'll be like, look at this, like, white people telling this native guy that he can't have the name be what he wants it to be. They were doing that with the Washington football team quite a bit.
Did you want to say something, Pascal?
No, I was going to say that kind of explains why the left thinks sports is reactionary with gator bait and tomahawk chop, tar babies and.
How about Colonel Rebel at Ole Miss until even when Eli Manning was playing college ball there, the little cane and
I've told my Mississippi story ad nauseum, but Mississippi is not the bastion of diversity that people want it to be.
y'all heard about Jackson, Mississippi's water crisis now, and how the state, the race is they want to starve out the legacy of Chokwe Lumumba's project there and Malcolm X grassroots, and I think that's still what they're doing. The Mississippi state government and Governor Tate Reeves. It's
we got to have
Kali Akuno.
Thank you, Kali Akuno.
Good point. Better to play a game than war, though. Joanna said.
And I love the project they're doing in Jackson. I don't know if you've ever had him on any of your shows, Matt, but that Jackson Cooperation Jackson project to me is very fascinating.
They had him on by any means necessary today. Actually, Jackie and Sean did.
Oh, okay.
Is that why he ain't calling us back?
Maybe so. He was on with Jackie and Sean today. Yeah.
You found it, Will? The Tar Babes?
Yeah. So the history behind it was that at one point they had this, some Mongolian warrior named Partar. And then the mascot became Baby Tartar. And then somewhere along the way, it became Tar Babies and Tar Babes. But they haven't changed it. I guess it's because it goes back to the Mongolian warrior, and like the logo is this guy with a big sword with a jacked up face and a fur hat.
Here, I'm going to show it to you guys right now. Can you see that? Do I need to blow
Yep.
it up?
Yo, if we keep going much longer, man, I would love to get the reaction of Matt and Pascal to that Texas A&M stadium thing. Like I've never seen something, man, that is literally like fascism. Like I don't use that word flippantly either. It's like the narrator, the militarism. It reminds me of like Michael Bennett too, when the NFL player, when he wrote about playing at Texas A&M. Martellus Bennett talks about it too.
What do you want to do? Can you explain to Pascal and Matt?
Yeah, man. So like in 2013, they laid this out on YouTube. It's come to fruition now, but it's like this tile field redevelopment. I shared it with you in your Twitter thing. It's just like, it's a narrator, and it's like going through like about the yell leaders. We don't have cheerleaders at Texas A&M. We have yell leaders, and we have the Corps cadets, and like they have all these like just insane statues all around the stadium. And they talked about building like the most intimidating run. It's like they're talking about like a Nuremberg like rally spectacle type building. I don't use those analogies lightly. I mean, I'm just saying, and I'm not saying it is that. I'm just saying the optics of it, and you listen to that video at the Texas A&M stadium renovation, and it's what's been built now. And what the larger point in this is that how it ties into stadiums in college football. What you have is an arms race, really, and I think the analogy is apt because Alabama builds a new locker room. They build a new room, a gaming room, right? They build the best training facilities and stuff and all this. Then Clemson's got to do it to keep up, right? And then Georgia's got to do it because it's all about recruiting. Recruiting's getting done earlier and earlier. The 7-on-7 camps are huge. So in the Southeast, you have what's so sad is what capitalism does is it forces you to at a young age choose what your career is going to be. I mean, I see it teaching middle school kids in the hood here in Jersey City right now that this where I'm teaching this year, and it's like they're being told in 6th grade and stuff now that like they got to know what they're gonna do, and like they got to make these decisions. It's wild. And so for athletes, for them, they're gonna define. They see that as they look at this landscape now, and it's like make it out doing I don't know, like either playing ball, being an entertainer, some way, and in some way somehow. And so earlier and earlier in age, like guys are like being incentivized in a huge way to not even play multiple sports, to get ultra specialized and go to these like IMG like academies and stuff that pluck guys away from their high schools and train them to be ultra specialized. And that's feeding this system of 100,000 seat stadiums that are funded by some of the most reactionary type people in the U.S. You look at like Auburn donor Jimmy Rain, from Yellowwood, and like you can just go down the list of like T. Boone Pickens before he passed Oklahoma State. These are like they're the projection of the billionaire class's power, like in using it, wrapping it up in the language of philanthropy. And that's a huge part of the stadium. Like really, it's a stadium industrial complex because it's like it's different than the NFL level, but there's no other country that has the whole guise of amateurism the way we do. And then you look at the way college football is marketed and just the huge relevance it has in our society. And it's only grown with the college football playoff and the bowl championship series era. So it's like as the contradictions get bigger, the profits are also growing. So there's just a lot that's going to be happening.
I don't mean to interject. This is a major digression. This is a major digression, but this is kind of a big deal to me. Jason, you might not know this. Wesley Snipes follows me on Twitter, and I sent him a tweet saying, "I loved your performance in Coming to America. I'd like to see you in more roles," and he retweeted it.
Oh wow!
That's a worthy digression.
It's a side note. We're gonna do a whole Coming to America show.
I should DM Wesley Snipes and see if we can get him on the show.
You go send Wesley Snipes a message and tell him we need to talk about his role in Wildcats.
Oh.
Texas A&M, that's the Bear Bryant school, right?
Yeah, well, so he was at A&M before he left to go to Alabama in '58. So that whole thing, the Junction Boys, they made like a 30 for 30 out of, where it's like he was basically running people almost died, like he built A&M up and then went to Bama, and then he only integrated Bama once he got his ass kicked by USC one day. But I mean, he had already had. It's kind of true. There was already he had a black player on his freshman team. Freshmen couldn't play on varsity back then. Bobby Knight actually was one of the last people fighting to keep that the way it was, which is not ironic. That's very fitting. But Bear Bryant.
Can I just interject there? I've met Bobby Knight 2 times up in the Wilson area. He hunts pheasant up there, and the 2 times, once when I was younger, it was when he was going through the shit in Indiana and not doing well, and he was in very like beat up sweats. And then I saw him again a few years later, and he had a brand new SUV and a very slick Texas Tech outfit, and he was doing a lot better. But yeah, Bobby Knight, intense, kind of scary guy to see up close at a diner in Williston.
He's a total narcissist too, is what's wild.
Yes.
You know, I rewatched the interview he did with Larry King after he had the whole strangling incident that got caught on camera, and they got him. The guy, his name was Neil. I forget his last name at the moment, but Dan Dockich was involved in that. And I got to give a shout out to the End of Sport podcast hosts. They're academics. One of them's at Duke, not Nathan Coleman Lamb. One's at King's University College. Derek Silva and Joanna Mellis, who's at a small liberal arts college in Pennsylvania. But, you know, Dan Dockich, who played at Indiana, like was a Bobby Knight assistant, just brutally went after them for them purely being, you know, they've been published in The Guardian, USA Today, Time this year, really going after like the idea of like what the exploitation that's going on, how getting college sports and college football back going was part of like politicians' larger plan to like justify reopening everything, and then saying everyone just be personally responsible, right? Just we're not going to like, you know, but then it's, you know, it's the flip side of that is like, then you get like the whole like liberal kind of like shaming of people that are like not staying at home, but people got to eat, you know? So it's a weird dynamic, man, but sports played a big role in that. And it can't be understated. I think that like the way they got that back going, it helped feed into the notion that like, you know, things are like, you know, getting back, but the idea it's laid bare because part of the whole unpaid athletic labor stuff is obfuscated when you're playing in front of 80, 90,000 people and you get the big man on campus feel and all that kind of, you know, the stuff that goes with it. This year it was stripped bare of all that. So I think the consciousness that a lot of like young, unpaid college football players and basketball players, look at Jordan Bohannon at Iowa now, who's speaking out. He had Jay Billis on his podcast recently. I mean, guys are not like, they are growing. And I think this year we'll look at is like a watershed year in terms of like player consciousness about what exactly their role is within this system. It won't be everybody. And it doesn't mean that like, I'm not like, don't have illusions of this being some, you know, like everything happening at once or anything like that. But there are a lot of young cats that went through a lot of stuff. They were literally sequestered from their families from like July through like December and January to put on a spectacle college football season, to make sure the SEC on CBS went through, to make sure ESPN's contracts were fulfilled, to make sure the Big Ten came back. So
that I don't know if you guys. So Matt, I actually me and Griscom go back and forth usually on college football Saturdays, right? And he actually was on the show before we were even doing live streams, and it was just audio only. He came on the show, and I wanted to definitely talk with him about college football. And I know you're not a huge college football fan, as he is. How did you guys feel about that when you saw college football like restarting, when all these other conferences had said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're not going to sacrifice our kids. It felt to me like those smaller, well, the SEC isn't smaller, but some of those other schools that were kind of leading off the college football season were almost like a testing ground. It felt like.
You realize the Pac-12 and the Big Ten went first, but they thought that those dominoes were going to fall, and that was going to mean the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 would follow. See, big-time college footballs, now they have what's called the Power Five conferences that make up the college football playoff. Teams that have even any chance of getting in there. So that was, but what happened is you had the Pac. They didn't follow the Pac-12. They didn't follow the Big Ten. You had like complete grifters like Clay Travis, and then who brought Jason Whitlock on, doing interviews with Trump, and then using Ron DeSantis to come on his show, running and really exploiting the fact that, like, look, athletes have it's not like another career where you like have a 30-year career in a profession. I mean, you've been conditioned, you're in the top shape of your life, you put your body through hell to like get to a level to compete at that high of a level. And then, so they're going to want to play. It's not going to be hard to have to convince them of that. So the idea that, they all like want to play, therefore like anyone pointing out that, how that's messed up is against what the players want, against what their families want, you know, and like they set that up in a way that's very advantageous for the ruling class and then pumping the, you know, even within mainstream sports media and people that were saying shut it down. It was all like, you know, COVID issues. You always had these euphemisms all year long to just sort of make it seem like, you know, it's a normalizing effect, right? After a while, it's just, I mean, so I'm not gonna lie, I watched it when it was on, like, I mean, but like it shouldn't. When you look at what was happening. Because what happens is not just the game, it's all the people coming in town. It's going to opening up the bars. It's the tailgating. It's the gathering. It's the huge parties that are going to happen. You have that game go on, that stuff's going to go down. It's just the way it is.
So did you want to jump in, Matt?
Just to say quickly that, yeah, I think you'd say the word normalized. It was normal in most of the country. I think they were surprised that it didn't open everywhere. You know, I think like high school sports in North Dakota, I remember my dad telling me, like, bragging that he wasn't going to games, which means that games were occurring and he was deciding not to go to them.
Is your dad in Mandan?
Yeah, he's a Mandan. He's a guy who, like, if you ever go to a Mandan basketball game and there's a loud guy yelling, sometimes at the refs, but often supportive. He's tried to get a little bit better in his old age, but he's one of the loudest guys at the in that gym.
Matt, so what was your best high school? What was your best high school basketball memory? Going back to your hoop glory.
Oh, well, we had this kid, Justin Balavic, who ended up playing, you know, not anything major college, but he was my grade, and so he's like starting as a freshman kind of kid. And there's certain, like, the clutch, you know they've done all those metrics that clutch doesn't exist.
The clutch gene?
Yeah, exactly. You could have swore this, like, and there's one overtime game against Bismarck Demons where he scored like 48, which was insane for like especially like North Dakota high school game. And he could just just put it in when it needed to go in. So probably that. Yeah.
What was your position, Matt? We need to know this stuff.
So, I got cut out junior year, but early on I grew fast and I could jump high, so I played 4, and then once started like kind of the weight training elements of basketball came around, I started getting muscle out of the post a little bit. And
how tall are you? 6'4"?
I'm 6'2".
You're 6'2"?
Yeah.
Will, you graduated high school at 5 what?
About 5'6", 5'7".
Man.
And being the great basketball coach that you are, they cut you every year. It's fucked up.
Wow, man.
I was 4'10" as a freshman.
You know what's crazy is like kids get cut in high school, but when it comes to college football, they don't cut people because they want to have like the biggest scout team possible, just to make sure, like, you know, like, oh yeah, you get to be on the team, you know, and, you know, get the experience. And like, there is good, like, you know, there's value in that for some guys, but like a lot of it is like they would need bodies and stuff like that. So it's crazy.
Well, and our high school never fielded. I think while me and Will were there, maybe your freshman year was different, Will, but I know when I was there with you, we never had a full football team.
So I went to an Albany High football game last year because one of my former basketball players was coaching their JVs. About, I think, 3 years ago, they didn't have a team. And, you know, guys were getting hurt. It's a high academic school. It's not really sports focused as it is. If it is sports focused, it's either wrestling, girls volleyball, and kind of basketball. Sometimes baseball. So
what was Sean's high school?
Huh?
What was Marshawn's high school?
Marshawn's Tech. They always had.
That was the antithesis of where we went to school.
They always had a pretty good football team after the 20-year run of Skyline High. Anyone watch Last Chance U?
Yeah,
where Tom Hanks
was.
Last Chance U, Coach Beam, he was at Skyline. He won like, I think, 15 straight championships.
I got experience with some of a couple of guys I coached going out to San Joaquin Delta College in Stockton. I told Jason the story of that. Yeah. So the JUCO, I know a little bit Cali JUCO. My bad, man. I apologize. So,
no, because like the Cali JUCO here is like Laney. So if you watch that Netflix special,
yeah, man. City College, San Francisco. Yeah, Last Chance.
What's the Laney? What's this Netflix show about the JUCO?
Last Chance U.
Last Chance U. They did it at Laney. Which is a pretty good JUCO football program. So is San Francisco City College. Is actually they're like really major. JUCO football programs. But
Cali JUCO.
our high school was like, sports was not why you went to Albany High at all. Like, you went there because you probably lived in the area. Because I remember when there were some classmates of ours, I'm not going to name names, it's still one of the funniest stories I've ever heard. One of these guys was a pitcher. He graduated with me, and he was so drunk on the mound, he was just telling the hitters to move out the way because he didn't know where the fuck the ball was going.
What about Doc Ellis, man? He threw a no-hitter, man, against the Padres for the Pittsburgh Pirates on LSD, man.
Back to Albany football. So I go to the game. And one of our friends, whose son is on the varsity team, is telling me that one of the conditions they had to kind of run by enough families to field a team was that they weren't going to hit during practice.
Ooh!
So you can only imagine how the games went. They were always a beat slow. It wasn't like these guys were soft, like they but like
they just didn't know how to tackle.
Yeah, well, I mean, they knew how in theory.
Theory and practice, man. Theory and practice.
You're a beat slow, and now instead of like squaring them up and hitting them on the side, and he's hitting you, but he had.
Man, that's the thing about football, though. It's like you think that it's safer, like not to hit, to take it out. But if you're like not practicing tackling at all, it's actually more dangerous in a game because then you could, not end up getting yourself in your head in the wrong position, whatever.
Again, we were not known for football back when we had like 13. It'd be like 13 players on the team, so dudes playing both sides.
That is dangerous, man.
When I was my first year coaching basketball at Albany, the football team, I think, had like 16 guys, and I think out of their like 9 games, they had a lead at halftime in 7.
They're just tired.
They weren't bad, but it's just like when you got 16 guys and 3 of them will never see the field. So you're really
any of them hoop, or like is it the basketball team exclusively just hooping at that point?
No, you play kind of all sports.
Yeah, no, Albany is one of those towns where like. Since you're not going there for sports, you're not really specializing. You don't have
dreams. Cool. I like that, man. Deion Sanders is a huge advocate for that. Because, by the way, they're playing college football right now, like in the spring, like HBCUs right now, and Division One FCS. Well, they had no season last year. So Deion Sanders is the head coach at Jackson State University right now, and he's using too bad he signed that deal with Barstool, but nonetheless, he's got it's really bringing a good light in terms of onto the issues of HBCU football. They got good coverage of the Grambling game. I mean, we could talk about why college football going on during the pandemic now, but
I don't know how Pascal feels about that stuff, but I remember growing up, and this is definitely before you and Matt's time. Growing up watching BET was the only place you could see. Back then it was called Black College.
Now, I remember actually, man.
First of all, now that you mentioned Black College Sports, I've got to plug my good friend Greg Moore, who's the commissioner of the SIAC, which is the Southern Historically Black College and University Athletic Conference. I see my brother right here is very familiar with it. Oh, blood, sweat, and tears.
Check out. I'll be interviewing Professor Derek White tomorrow. This is about blood, sweat, and tears. This Jake Gaither, Florida A&M, and the history of Black college football. Talking about sporting congregations. So anyway, go ahead, Pascal.
Right. Yeah. So I got to shout out.
Check out his book, man.
I got to shout out my man Greg Moore and the Historically Black College and University Athletic Leagues, the SIAC, and there was a time, man, where black historically black colleges and universities were the go-to place for professional athletes, especially in football, even sometimes in basketball.
Bob Hayes, John Stallworth. I can just go down on and on. Deacon Jones,
it's funny that we say that now, because going back and thinking about, and again, Nate, I thought you were younger than that. Matt, you're not even 30 yet, right?
No,
I'm 30.
I'm 34.
You're 32. Yeah. Okay, maybe if you guys remember this, I'll be shocked. BET back in the day used to be like, I'm not saying it was a great channel back in the day, but it was a lot better.
106 in part.
I'm talking way before that, when they had like Teen Summit, and you could watch like black college football. And that was the first time a lot of us saw the halftime show, the halftime band, which was always like whoa, what the fuck are they doing this week? You know, it was always some crazy shit for me and my friends to see. I remember like going out.
So in FAMU, man, the marching 100s, I would go over to FSU and FAM are like, it's like very visible, the segregation line. Like there's a train track, you can still see it. But nonetheless, you go over to FAM and like, man, the marching 100s playing at halftime, people are not going to take a piss, you know, whatever. It's like, that's, you know, the main event a lot of times. And, you know, it's so it's a big deal, man, like, for sure.
Sorry, my son is dancing behind me.
It's all good. Will, my bad, man. What were you? What were you
what was that big classic they had on BET? The football.
The Bayou Classic.
Yeah. And then there's the Orange Blossom Palmetto Classic that's got FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, BC, and then you got Grambling and Southern and the Bayou Classic in New Orleans.
BET in my, because they didn't have sports, all they had was black collar sports. So they had to highlight it in a way that it wasn't going to get highlighted anywhere else. It was their sports.
I'm actually wearing
it. Like, this is hey, college football Saturday. Come here and watch college football.
Okay, well, listen, now that we're talking about the historical significance.
I love it. The Rattlers will strike and strike again.
of HBCUs. What do you guys think of the current attempt by some people in the black sports echo chamber to get high caliber high school athletes who are black to consider black colleges instead of giving their talents over to top division white schools to keep the economic benefit of black athletes in black higher education? Some think it's a controversial subject.
Well, yeah, Matura Maker, you know, he's the one that's kind of started this whole thing, man. 5-star. He chose Howard over UCLA last summer. And so, I mean, I think it'll be, you know, whether or not he's more of an anomaly or he can start a trend, we'll see. But I think that's you can't understate. It's really, really big news, man. Maker, yeah.
The big thing, I think, I mean, you were talking about it before with the arms race, with the facilities. Like Robert Covington, who plays for the Blazers, when he did that stupid skills challenge on All-Star Weekend. But I guess he's donated a bunch of money, and they just finished on building a practice facility at Tennessee State, which is where he went. You know, and like, I mean, you can get guys to consider going there, but if the facilities aren't comparable and guys have like pro aspirations, not even the NBA, but just even being able to play at a high level, may possibly go overseas, you know, things like that I think are more important than like, you know, the black and white montage commercial public service amount.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. You know, so substance over. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Did you want to jump in, Matt?
No, I obviously have no problem with players doing that. I just think to expect them to do it is asking a hell of a lot for the reasons you're saying.
No doubt.
But I wonder if, maybe does, I guess the media environment for sports make it more useful. Like I don't know the ins and outs of like Steph Curry going to Davidson, for instance, but that seemed weird. That like
he just was under recruited. He was just under recruited, and Davidson's an all mostly white school. I mean, very, very elite, like right outside of Charlotte school.
It's kind of like St. Mary's out here, right?
Davidson's a very white, like Presbyterian Church USA affiliated type school. That's really good academically, but it's very small liberal arts school.
His dad's alma mater wouldn't give him a scholarship. They offered him.
His little brother had to go to Liberty. His little brother had to go to Liberty, Falwell's University, Jerry Falwell's, and then he transferred
like
to Duke.
Super Christian though, like isn't that like falling?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, but he transferred. Seth transferred from Liberty to Duke. But yeah, if you go to Liberty, that's next world type crazy, man.
Well, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I know you guys are getting. It's late in the East Coast where you guys are. Closing out, Nate Wallace, Redspin Sports. Is there anything you want to say closing out?
Yeah, I'll just say I'm excited to talk to Professor Derek White tomorrow just about what he calls sporting congregations and like that developed as a result of Jim Crow segregation and how the way integration was implemented within this country, like really harmed a lot of those previously existing ties that had built up in Black communities. And there was really an effort that he writes about and we'll talk about to really crush HBCU football as a real competition for PWI football. They didn't really start playing them for what they call money games until like the 90s, where like the money games means like basically a Division I AA or now FCS school gets a big check to go basically get their ass whooped by Florida or Alabama or whatever. But the players get to play in a big venue. But they didn't do that for a long time. And because, like Matt just mentioned, the material advantages PWI's had, it's a lot to ask, individual players. And to say that, like, if they don't, turn down a scholarship to Alabama to go to, say, like a Jackson State, they're, not in solidarity or something. It's like, I feel like people, if you're going to be critical, you at least got to think about what you would do if you were in someone else's shoes. So it doesn't mean to give people passes, and it's good to be critical, but I feel like we also need to be aware of the contradictions that exist in this landscape. So I'm looking forward to that. We got live streams every week on Wednesday, and then I'm always on By Any Means Necessary on Fridays with Jackie Luckman and Sean Blackman for the Redspin Report. So check us out at Redspin Sports, and I appreciate you having me on, man. It's always fun, and being with Jason, Pascal, Matt, and Coach Will. I really much respect for what you're doing out there in Oakland.
Nate, James Graham wants to know what time your broadcast is on.
8:00 Eastern time on Wednesdays. We're doing it now. We might go to 2 a week here soon, but for right now, that's when the three of us can get together. Tomorrow night, we got big game James Coleman on, who's a friend of the show. He played fullback at Florida State back when Florida State was dominant in the early 2000s still. And he has he hosts a sports radio show in Jacksonville that starts at 9 at night. So he's coming on with an hour for us tomorrow night. Has a lot of insight on, just the college football scene, the NFL scene, all this. So anyways, James Coleman will be on with us tomorrow night, and I'm excited to talk some ball and just kind of hear where he's at right now. And he does a lot of good stuff too, and knowledgeable about his history and all this kind of stuff Pascal was bringing up, history of, black sport and in America, and the centrality of race really within sport is a thing too, and its intersection with class. So we try to hit on all that, man.
And Big Matt, power forward of the left.
Check out Left Reckoning, folks. I'm a big fan of Nate, how you're talking about sports and this whole idea that you don't want to represent the left as like not supportive of this massive cultural arena. So that's kind of what we try to do at Left Reckoning. David Griscom himself is trying to rehabilitate country music a little bit. That's not.
I remember that. Yeah, I've enjoyed some of y'all's work, man. So solidarity.
Look at me right now. Look at me right now, Lech. You tell David Griscom I said this. My chocolatey ass did work at one of the largest, if not the largest, country music festival in the country.
Which one was
that? Stagecoach.
Okay.
After Coachella. Oh boy, does he have some hard work ahead of him. The country music that he listens to is so divorced from that scene that it's not really country like you think it is. It's more, this is what it was sounding like to me. It sounded like shitty hip hop from dudes that liked hip hop but didn't know black people.
That's right on point, man. I gotta say one thing, man, about the country music thing, Matt. Like, I'll never forget. I was in high school, and it was just one of those things. Like, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. It's like, friends would go to concerts and tailgate and stuff like that, and drink whatever. So I remember it was like after a basketball practice, I think I had, and it was shortly before the Iraq War was about to start, and I was like either in 10th or 11th grade. And 10th grade, and Toby Keith was playing, and I can't believe so I ended up I was in the arena. My politics weren't like that great back then. I was more focused on sports anyways and stuff. But nonetheless, I'll never forget where he gets up and starts playing that. My daddy served in the army where he lost his right eye, but he flew a flag out in his yard till the day that he died. My mother, that's it. At the end of the song, we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. And the whole thing about all that. And it's like the level of just like intoxication, like the people, like those like national, like American ultra chauvinists were feeling right then. It's like they literally, if you would have let them just go out and just bomb Iraqis and just like go hog wild, they would have just mass murdered people if they could have. That's how wild it
100%.
was, man.
It's when I was there, the first year I did it was 2016, and Coachella's 2 weekends long. I was out, I do tech stuff for big music festivals, and you're out there for about a month or so with my job. And so after Coachella's over, Stagecoach is a lot smaller because Coachella is about 100,000+ people a day, and Stagecoach is about 50,000 people a day, and it's just such on a different level of racism and insanity. Like that year, the number one shirt I saw from concert goers that year was maybe it was 2017, was the Reagan Bush shirt.
Oh, Reagan Bush 84 stuff was making a comeback. Yeah.
Reagan Bush shirts were everywhere. Make America Great Again hats. So they thought it was a great idea for merch to make the merch say make Stagecoach
Florida Georgia Line.
It's probably not a great example of all country music. Like, I understand that there is a spectrum of all music, but working in the larger music festivals in the country of every genre of music,
right?
There's only really two that people care about, and it's electronic music and country music, because those are the ones that make money. I'll be honest with you guys.
I feel like you're just like killing David's dreams right now.
Hey, he can go there. He can come with me if he wants to. He's gonna be real disciplined. He's gonna come out there with his cowboy shit on and feeling good about himself. And all he's gonna see is some bedazzled ass denim everywhere. Like, damn.
Hey, it starts somewhere, man.
It was not. It was not what I thought.
I guess, Matt, you can just take along with them out there. Be like, guys, let's talk about some anti-imperialism.
Hey, it was a very uncomfortable place to be. Conan's in the chat. What's up, Conan? It's a very uncomfortable place to be, to say the least. So in these environments, you work with nothing but white people, right? So, it was me and another black dude, and one of the guys that worked there took the other black dude with him because his family had went every year, right? And it's also RV only, so they call it glamping. So it's a whole different. Coachella is a little more, I wouldn't say hippie-ish, but it's just a little different. This is a little higher end, right? Slightly. And so this black dude is walking with his white coworker, and it took like him to walk with a black person to realize that the music festival was racist because of the looks that they were getting.
I'll never forget, man. I was at
that moment. He was like, "Are you must be so uncomfortable right now?" It's like, yes, I've been uncomfortable for the last month.
Yeah. I was in DC on January 6th, and I went down like after work. I was teaching virtually Jersey City Public Schools this year, and went down, met up with like my friend Max Blumenthal, and he was filming outside there and out to the Capitol. Like they had already stormed it and come out, but I just remember like the Auschwitz guy being out there, and I remember like the different people, and the main thing that stood out was like literally just a normal black guy walked by with just like a button-down shirt, and like this whole like mob of like former military guys that like a lot of them clearly had PTSD and were just excited to be like, we're on some tactical operational mission and stuff. And they immediately were starting to like, as soon as they got tear gassed a little bit, we're all like, man, fuck the blue, man, fuck you guys, blah blah blah, defund everyone and shit. But nonetheless, they were calling the black guy walking by Antifa. That's him. Get him. They get Antifa.
That's him.
It's like just like get him, like that type stuff. Like they're like literally viscerally, and like I don't think it's an accident that the cops they did have there were young, like black like cops, basically that like were getting like overwhelmed essentially there and were scared. I mean, I think it was a weird dynamic. I was like, even at the end of it, before they just like came out with the flash grenades and everything and just shut it all down, there was a guy like holding a line like with like all these guys at his throat, and it's like, they clearly just kind of served out of the people they had on duty there were just sort of fodder for them. It was just there's so many. I don't want to get into all that again, but it's holy crap, man! That was a mind that took me some time to decompress, man.
I wish that I had the power sometimes to take. Like when I tell people some of these music industry stories and stories about some of these festivals, like I wish I had the power when the world opens up to like say, come on guys, come with me to this festival over here so you can see what this bullshit is I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So you can like see like the inner workings of this shit. But
Man,
I'll shut up now. So besides David Griscom trying to save country music.
No, that's basically it. I think see how that goes. If that goes well, then we'll have accomplished some of our other goals. So yeah, Left Reckoning YouTube. We stream on Thursdays at 8 p.m.
And you have your own literary hangover show.
I do, yeah. I've been a little bit behind on that the last few months, but yeah, it's a show where I go through sort of old literature and also the real history that it either gave you a glimpse of or obscured, depending on who the author is and how well they wrote it. So yeah, you can check out that too, Literary Hangover.
I put a link up to that show on the description for your Bacon's Rebellion show, which I thought was really interesting.
Man, dope.
Yeah, been doing a lot of Bacon's Rebellion stuff too. Yeah, that's like these debates people have about fascism and whether Trump is fascist. Like whatever term you put on it, whatever impulse is there that like occurred particularly on January 6th is something that has been in this country at least since Europeans have been here. So
no doubt. Then
So
if you've done the Whiskey Rebellion, would also be a good one too.
No, but I definitely, there's a great historian, William Hoagland, who writes about that. But I've been moving slowly through a history, kind of like trying to go in order. So we're not quite there yet. But Whiskey Rebellion, that's another very.
Radio Warner, Ames and Dolan had him on. It was like fascinating just listening.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nate, I am trying to wrap up the goddamn show, and you want to.
I'm done.
William Liu, is there anything you want to promote other than Oakland High basketball?
I want people to go watch Boogie, and if it's a bad movie, at least you're watching a bad movie with some Asians in it. You watch bad movies with white people all the time. No, the lead actor this is only acting gig is played basketball at Alameda High, so I know the kid.
Oh, cool.
It's called Boogie. Is it on what platform is it on?
It just came out in theaters.
This kid's like majorly acting then.
So it's a long story, but it's Eddie Wong, his directorial debut, and it's about
Eddie Wong is who?
The guy that's on. He had the restaurant Bauhaus. He wrote the book Fresh Off the Boat, and then they made the.
Oh, that Eddie Wong.
Yeah, and he.
You know him?
No, the actor. He Eddie Wong directed it and wrote it. The actor that plays the lead Asian basketball player, he's from Alameda.
Oh, I think I saw a promotional for this movie.
Will knows every famous Asian.
And he's not famous. That's the crazy part about it. Like I was looking at his IMDb, he's never acted. I saw the backstory, and I guess he met Eddie Wong playing like in an adult league, and we started talking about food. So they started cooking together, and he gave him a job at one of his restaurants. And then he found out, he's really good at basketball. So when he started filming this movie, he hired Taylor to like be his assistant and teach the original actor how to play basketball. And then like halfway through like the pre-production or something, he was like, "You should be the lead actor." I've never acted before. Oh well. So that's kind of how that came about.
Before you go, real quick, I get a kick out of the story. Can you say your Jeremy Lin story about how you called me up after you watched Jeremy Lin play in where's he from? The Palo Alto, yeah.
What about it?
You forgot about that when you were like, dude, there's this Asian kid. I saw him play. If he works on his game, he might be able to have a serviceable career in the league. And that's about it.
Like in high school, so modern day in Southern California is like the elite, one of the top programs in the country. They're paying for players, bringing them. I won't say they're paying for players, but they're bringing players in from all over the place. And Jeremy Lin, 6'1", skinny Chinese guy, beats them pretty much single-handedly in the state championship. And, I had seen him play before, but when I saw that performance, I was like, there's something special about this kid. And the whole story about no one recruiting him at the high level, that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a myth, but it's like he didn't fit the profile. If he didn't grow another 2-3 inches, put on muscle, he still probably wouldn't have made the NBA, but that boy can play. And Boogie, I think it's a cool movie because it's the first movie I can think of that's about an American of Asian descent rather than some like dude from Asia. Like he's like me, And he's like regular, like like he's just an Asian dude that's playing basketball in New York with Asian parents, and so like I don't expect it to be great. Even like I've seen mixed reviews, but I figure I've seen enough crappy movies with different ethnicities, seeing, I think the inclusion.
I'm gonna watch it, man. I'm watching it.
But it looks like a legit movie. But I don't know how good it's going to be.
And Pascal Robert, what do you have planned? Because you're everybody's favorite guest.
Oh, me? Well, we have a great show coming up on Thursday with Preston Smith, right? We're going to be talking about class and housing. Besides that, man, we're going to be working on This Is Revolution. We're getting to 1,000 subscribers up. Please subscribe on YouTube. Coming to 1,000 subscribers. Besides that, still working on our book. Trying to get at least 5 chapters done before the summer.
Awesome.
There you have it, Pascal's book that's coming out on Zero Books. It's called Kill Whitey.
No, it's not.
That's great, man. That's great.
Hey, thank you guys.
Abby Hoffman steal this book like title, just sell a bunch of books, man.
Oh yeah, we just cut straight to the point, and that's just what it is.
Kill Whitey.
Thank you guys for paying attention. Matt, thanks for coming on. Nate, thanks for coming on. I definitely want to continue the sports conversation because I think it's one that we can have a little bit more constantly. I think it's one the left needs to have a little bit more.
Yeah.
As you can see, if you can see behind me, there's a young man in his jammies. That's letting. Can you see that?
I'm calling your name, man.
Oh, is it time to go night-night? He gets shy now in front of the camera. He doesn't want to talk anymore in front of the camera. You want to say goodnight to Uncle Will? You want to say goodnight to Uncle Will?
Coach Will, you got an open invite anytime on Redspin Sports, man. We'd love to have you on. Love having these conversations with coaches, and coaches especially doing great work, doing what they can to provide some organization. I mean, because the reality is, and how neoliberalism is hollowed out. Like there aren't these programs available to kids. So even if it's sad right now, I see sports as like a kind of maybe a vehicle to maybe hopefully until things we're able to organize to transform some things to a better condition, to give kids something that's like other than just like the sitting around nothing. And like sports provides that sense of like togetherness, working together for a common goal. I think there is pedagogical value in it, and if it's coached the right way. But it takes having good coaches and coaches that see it as something larger than just a game. And so mad props, man.
And also, if you become a patron, you can get This Revolution coffee mug, which I just got today in the mail, and you can get a hoodie. Wait a minute, a hoodie.
Oh, it looks good, man.
Wow.
There you go. You can get one of these. There's going to be more stuff coming that we're going to have that you don't have to be a patron for. We're just waiting on the design guy. But other than that, thank you guys for watching this. And again, I want to have I want to have more of these fun sports talks. They're fun, but they're also like important to have. Let's not give sports to the centrists and the right wing, much like I don't want to give religion to the centrists and the right wing. Like those are okay places for us to be. We can be leftists and be football and basketball fans and all that other good shit. So
yeah, man. On a way to end, look what I found at my doctor's office the other day. 10 years old, sitting in the reading. What if he doesn't go? And I was just sitting. How is this sitting here? U.S. imperialism. I'm at my acupuncture doctor. What if he doesn't go for real?
Pascal, what happens if he doesn't get murdered? Pascal in Libya, what happens?
I mean,
what happens? We might have had a Pan-Africanist project on the African continent.
You think so?
I mean, like.
Possibly.
So I had to remove that to avoid this trash being read by anybody else in that waiting room there. So, nonetheless, God bless America, right?
All right. Well, hey, thank you guys.